yeah, let's unpack this based on our years of hands-on experience with e-commerce and offer hopefully a clearer perspective on the true landscape of dropshipping right now and what's going on. So,
have you ever felt that sinking feeling like you might have missed the boat on the next big thing? Well, hold on to that thought, because today in this episode, Lewis and I are going to be diving into a question that's on so many people's minds. Is dropshipping too competitive to start today? By the end of this episode, you might just think differently about the entire landscape. But before we unravel all that, let's dive straight into it, Lewis. I'm going to ask you a direct question to kick off the episode. So, is dropshipping too saturated in today's market?
I completely understand the fear and where the question comes from, and it absolutely is natural to wonder if you're stepping into an oversaturated market. So yeah, let's unpack this based on our years of hands-on experience with e-commerce and offer hopefully a clearer perspective on the true landscape of dropshipping right now and what's going on. So it's undeniable there are more players now than ever. So the e-commerce market has definitely expanded massively, but the pie itself is bigger. And let me explain a bit around what I mean when I say that. So a good example of this is I took my family on holiday to Dubai earlier this year for about 5 weeks, and we were out there. And there were huge changes since we'd last been there a few years earlier. But if you Google, on Google image search, if you Google the term Dubai then versus now, it'll show you a really interesting picture of what Dubai used to look like versus what it's like now. And the growth that's happened in that time frame that's come from expanded competition, expanded retailers, more people living there, more energy, more things happening there, more injection of money. So think of e-commerce in the same way, if you can, as this city that's growing, that's expanded. As more people come in, instead of it just getting crowded, like they didn't say, okay, let's not build any buildings, we're just going to have an influx of people there. The reason more people came is because there was more opportunity. And because there was more opportunity, more people came. And therefore they built more buildings and they opened more shops, more retail outlets, more malls, things like that. And so as people come in, instead of it getting overcrowded, the city itself begins to expand. So there are real parallels here with e-commerce. If you think of this as like the representation of the market, the more vendors there are, there's way more customers coming there because people will move there. The tourists will come there on holiday and want to go shopping. And so if you imagine us as the people that are the vendors in that scenario, in that example, well, people now are shopping online more than ever, aren't they? You've got the older generation who are really becoming more confident with shopping online now. You've got the younger generation who are just getting into they're just getting their first smartphones and immediately they're like, okay, what can I buy online? And so you've got all of those people now in terms of the customers that are now available to us for us to serve. It just means that e-commerce adoption as a whole is up. Now, I know that that's just an example there, but to put things in perspective and to really put some numbers around this, according to Statista, the UK's e-commerce market is estimated to reach just under £116 billion in 2023. That's a massive arena with room for countless players to find their niche and to thrive like we've done. So while the competition is kind of part of the game and it's something to be aware of, the potential is just enormous. And in my opinion, the pie is just going to continue to expand to become bigger and bigger. So you probably need a smaller slice of it eventually. And it's just this ever-changing landscape with trends changing, technologies evolving and being launched, and strategies that maybe worked yesterday but might not work today. So there's always room to innovate and remain relevant. And I think that you've just got to remember there's always room to innovate within this market. Think of it like the kind of hipster coffee scene that's really become a thing in the UK and globally over the last few years. That didn't used to be the case, did it? When we were growing up, when we were young, it was like very basic cafes where they just sold normal coffee. Now you've got so many of these real like latte art, Instagram-worthy, incredible coffee shops that are opening up that charge a fortune for what is essentially a basic coffee. But that's a classic example of an industry evolving and thriving, and with more sellers. If I'm a hipster coffee shop owner and I think I'm going to open a coffee shop today, I don't look at all of the existing coffee shops and just think, well, that's it, I've missed it. Other people are already selling coffee, so there must be no sales left. What it's done is it's expanded the customer base as well. And I know that because there are more branches, because there are more independents that have opened, it's made the scene more accessible to people in various locations. So the presence of other e-commerce sellers, to take it back to e-commerce and dropshipping, to answer your question, I don't think that the presence of other competitors should put you off. It shouldn't prevent you from getting started. If anything, the way that I view it, and I'm sure you view it too, is that it should prove to you that it is possible. So if it's possible for them, why not for you?
Exactly. And that's exactly how I view it. Because if you think about it, well, what's the alternative? Would we prefer to go into a market where there's absolutely zero competition? And that's often very much for a very clear reason. So actually, when you think about the alternative, if there was no competition at all, what that would be telling you is that there's no demand for that type of business. So when there is competitors, when there are successful e-commerce businesses all over the UK, that tells us that there's a demand for that type of business in the UK today. And I think, as you said, and the point you made so well with the coffee example, is people tend to think about when you start a new business, you might focus on how many competitors there are, but the focus isn't on how large the demand is and how much that's growing. If people started to put their focus on how large that e-commerce market is this year, then they'd start to forget about how many other competitors there are, because there's so many opportunities and such a big opportunity that we have at the moment with the e-commerce market being as big as it is. So we'll talk about competitors then a little bit more, Lewis. Do you think competition for e-commerce brands that are just getting started is necessarily a bad thing?
No, and to use another kind of recent example of where I saw this happen, it was just so clear to me that the competition isn't something to be afraid of or put off by or be fearful of. I was in Borough Market, the London food market recently, and there were so many sellers and vendors and people selling their food, like these food stalls and food trucks that had opened up as these pop-ups. Now, they wouldn't all be there if there wasn't a high level of demand and interest and a hunger for what they were selling, right? But it's differentiation that's key. They're not just all carbon copies and cutouts of each other, that it's exactly the same thing again and again and again. It's differentiated. So not all competitors offer the same value in any market. So both in e-commerce and in that example, you walk through a food market like that, and some stores have got a completely unique twist, or some have got a signature dish that only they're doing that no one else has. It smells incredible and they get a queue of people lining up to try and order it. Or some are just from different cultures that are presented in that market currently. And so they have a differentiation, they have a unique proposition to offer. And it's the same with e-commerce stores. You might think that you're entering a crowded market, but do you have a unique marketing angle that you could put on what is already maybe quite a busy market? Is there something you could do around appealing to people that would buy from you because you're eco-friendly? Or perhaps you want to target just women or just men, or maybe it's just your store is just for parents. Or perhaps you say, I'm just going to be business to business, B2B. That's my differentiation. And then I can serve those business customers in the best way possible. And they feel completely at home when they reach our store. While others, it might be, okay, well, we are going to serve customers, but we're going to, or consumers, but we're going to have the best customer service in the business. And it's going to be so friendly and welcoming that people are just going to feel absolutely bought into our brand when they first contact us. And so, it's like a restaurant. They all serve food, but each of them have their unique flavors, their unique style, and they put their own spin on it. And that's the thing. Of course, it's good to just observe the competition and look at what's working, but use it as a learning experience and take the insights from what's working well, what's not working well, what resonates with you, what kind of brand you'd like to have. And then I think just find your style and roll with it. Use the data, but most of all, be open to adapting to what the market tells you, and ultimately you'll win. Because that's the thing. If you go into it closed-minded and say, I'm doing it this way because that's the way I believe it should work, the market tells you otherwise, and you're unwilling to adapt to that, then that's where you'll hit friction. So make sure you're open to it, take that feedback on board, and it's a recipe for success, right? That's the way that you will serve the market what they want to buy from you, and they won't be worried about who else is out there selling the same thing and the competition, because they'll resonate with you.
Exactly. And the only way you can really find out what the market wants is by getting into business and putting those fears to one side about competition, about saturation. Put those to one side, you can get started, and then straight away, you'll get all the data from your Google Ads campaigns. You'll start to hear things from your customers about why they would choose you and what they're looking for. And then you can carve out your little niche within the niche that you're in. And you can start to know exactly the customers that you want to serve, and everything you do with your business, the branding, how the best USPs that you give to your customers all becomes focused around a specific customer type that you want to aim for.